Anyone not ready? Aids the interpretation. Debaters must disclose all broken positions on the topic of on their NDCA page, Wiki page under their own name with the full citation tags and first three, last three words. Violation. They have 0 negative positions disclosed and only 1 F on the side, but if they've read at least the NDCA and the non-topical ableism F at this tournament. Screenshots in the speech doc. C, you should lose. Free writing. They get a huge reciprocity advantage because the majority of national circuits buys into disclosure and puts stuff on the Wiki. They get cites in cards for cases and prep and proofs. Quality granted. They can predict what other people are running, but we can't predict them. This outweighs all other standards. A, every reason disclosure is good is an advantage for them and not me. And B, the view their counterinterpret with a grain of salt because it's self-serving. And C, free writing is immoral and an independent voter. Ripstein. Everyone must do his or own part of the free writer wrongs fellow citizens by taking advantage of their rights. Citizens others work for the purposes of another and are used by the free writer. And 2 is deep research. Disclosure means the community blasts through stock arguments and not a specific research on particular cases, increases education and balances research burdens. Nail 13. Disclosure streamlines research rather than every time lone wolves researching in the dark. The Wiki provides a public body of knowledge to build off. The best arguments are identified and replicated. Quality of evidence increases the cost of and motivates research to debate cannot expect to make it a whole topic with the same stock AC with the access to cases do more targeted and specific research. A new level of time spent researching is more valuable. 3 is academic ethics. Disclosure deters miscutting, tower attacking, and abusive practice and ellipses, cutting out of context and plagiarism. Opponents will recut your ad, find the articles, and call you out. This is an independent voter. Since on theory, since my interpret is key to academic honesty, it's supportable. So debate loses its educational value if we can't just make up cards without getting caught. And drop the debater. There's no alternative with disclosure. Free writers and those in power in this quote won't give up until the competitive incentives force them. Sanchez 5. To enforce this norm, the interest taking balance from free riders' dominant place to benefit immensely from the status quo despite the lip service-based education of competitive incentive changes. Nothing will magically level the playing field. Participants have altered competitive incentive by winning balance when they open source position which are more likely to compel debaters. He continues. This implies putting norms on enforcement power in the hands of debaters mean when a team fails to post it should run up against meta theory. Next on case. Militarism is rampant. Violence is the solution, and there's no recourse to the politics of disposability. The role of the ballot and the justice to vote for the debater who best methodologically fights back against militarism. Juro 5. That's Juro. Tension between democratic values and market fundamentals has reached a breaking point. Racism can celebrate and politics disposability comes close to its endgame of determination for those considered excess. Totalitarianism, state violence, wealth, the critical thoughts of responsibility, ethical mentions in politics. The militarization of police brought to bear by punishment it's centered on the U.S. politics has become an extension of war and state violence and violence. Increasingly found legitimation education has to be viewed as crucial to overcoming the current crisis. Educated students need to reclaim that role that education has historically played and develop critical and civic capacities. There's a need to use education to mobilize students to be critically engaged as agents, addressing issues. Educators need to recognize the power of education, creating the formative culture necessary to challenge threats against justice and democracy. And militarism has inflicted massive suffering and casualties without immediate action. Militarism will lead us into a death rather that threatens the planet and humanity. CAC 11. CAC 11. Please stop coughing when I say the name of the card. Militarism has inflicted massive suffering and civilian casualties. Militarism is like the largest single source of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. Its access to more oil and burning, which is the fundamental cause of climate change, is the primary underlying motive for current wars. Both are rendered in large areas uninhabitable, displacing military men. Changes the likely to result in far more wars being a threat. Multiplier now recognized as the greatest looming threat to security. Access to resources already challenging safe cities will likely trigger conflict and further displacement. Militarism is the largest source of toxic, chemical, and radioactive poison throughout the globe and plays a major role in promoting false solutions that worsen the problems. Global economy is in shambles. Millions lack access to basic healthcare. Major greenhouse gases have led efforts to obstruct progress. Our global governments being bought and sold on carbon markets results in further concentration of wealth and power at the expense of the planet, and humanity will not accept the death trial of militarism. And discursive forms are key to solving militarism since it's a discursive process based on societal beliefs. What's 10? Militarization involves intensification of resources allocated to military purposes. Militarization is essentially a discursive process involving age, if in general societal beliefs and values in ways that sustain and legitimate use of form. Militarization is intimately connected to the less visible deformation of human intentions in the hierarchies of race, class, gender, and sexuality to the shaping of natural histories where they glorify legitimate military action in the United States is now the largest wellspring for this global process. Offense. America's affliction for violence is deeply rooted in its gun culture. Gun culture is a societal acceptance of guns. They are a cherished symbol of gun culture. Wolpert and Gimmel 98. Gun culture rich in symbolic predispositions that result of pre-socialization. Gun culture refers to the sentimental attachment of many Americans' firearms. This attachment is rooted in the connection between guns and independence, the frontier space, the hunting and sporting ethos. Cultural tradition. Gun culture revolves around those who continue to use guns for hunting, sporting, and related purposes. Opponents of gun control, including that art and deliberate casting gun control issue in moral terms. Attitudes to gun control may be stimulated by traditional affective symbolic preferences. And handguns have attained a psychological cultural value that creates backlash to gun control. Bromberg 85. 65% of all homicides are due to the use of handguns, and handgun use has attained a psychological value in our country, amounting to a cultural form. The violent offender needs a gun to improve his self-image and law-abiding person with which to fantasize and excited body image. Both groups are locked into a homeostasis. This is why society is unable to not control what is required as an appreciation of the psychological tie. This is irrational. Reality, we need nothing but ourselves and accept that the situation will help. Advocacy. I affirm the resolution of the United States private ownership of handgun ought to be banned. Solvency. Civil rights movement proves laws affect culture. Maskit 15. Liberals are calling for restrictions on access to weapons. Gun culture runs deep. The laws can be changed during a civil rights movement strategy to pressure elected officials to challenge laws to end segregation and secure voting rights, persuade the public and change the culture. Southern white culture should eventually it followed rather than preceded the change in the law. We've seen changes in the laws affecting same-sex couples, abortion, poverty, health insurance, all issues with deep and complicated issues. These changes came because the groups advocate for the impression their jurisdictional, legislative, and executive branches to respond cultural shifts to reflect the legal changes, not assume issues untouched because it's complex or cultural. Some have seen legal changes anyway and done good. And 2, handguns key, Volag 9. American people have considered the handgun to be quintessential cities made for gun as easier to store, readily accessible gun needs to be rooted and wrestled away, easier to lift and maybe give one to while the other hand out. Police handguns are the most popular weapon chosen by Americans and gun bans and material burden on the rights of bear arms. And empirically proven cultural change lowers demand and reduces ownership. Lemove 14. The better predictor for arms ownership is fascination of firearms measured in absolute dollars spent on makes the thing of that value gun violence. Also, the percentage of GDP devoted to the military is a variable statistically significant model informs us that a country has more restrictive regulations reaches low firearm ownership rates. This model statistically significant possesses a strong regression coefficient R squared that explains 62% of the variance of gun ownership between countries. Underview. Intervention. Prefer truth over tech on the disclosure debate. I am explicitly inviting judge intervention in favor of disclosure. Disclosure is winning now, but it's not nearly fast enough, and big national circuit teams like Highland, which has 17 TOC bids, aren't falling in line because they get hypertech judges who will vote on a blippy one-line weighing argument or K before theory. Theories inherently subjective since it's not a real empirical question. It just have different thresholds for voting on theory, so the impact of intervention is non-unique. If you think disclosure is good, sign your ballot.
You cut stuff out of my speech doc?
No. The only thing not in there is the fair testing at the bottom.
Okay. 6?
Yeah.
Right. Let's go to the 1AC framing. So what comes first, the 1AC's framing or the theory interpretation?
I think disclosure provides a prior question, but I would argue that roll of the ballot and theory both appeal to theoretical standards that can be weighed between,
Both
right?
appeal to theoretical
Critical
standards.
education versus fairness can be weighed between, right?
Okay, do you do weighing in the 1AC?
I give reasons as to why both are very important.
Both are important, okay, which is more important? So that's my question.
Okay, so first off, I think this is a bad argument to be going for, but you can go for it if you want to.
I mean,
Second,
I just want
I think
to know.
Disclosure is a prior question.
Disclosure first. So disclosure is the highest layer of the debate, correct?
I think higher implies a false hierarchy of layers. I think they are horizontal. I think they are horizontal, not vertical. It is not like theory necessarily comes before the case.
Okay, so if I went a bunch of impact terms to the case and then just read reasons why case outweighs that, this gets rid of the disclosure argument.
Probably not. I'd make arguments as to why disclosure impacts to your ability, to my ability to fairly engage in the substantive debate on the K layer. But we can have that debate, right? It can go either way.
All right. You say screenshots are in the speech doc?
Yeah.
Where?
Right under the violation.
I have nothing.
You want to see it online? Maybe you have it in a different format, but this is what I flashed you.
Okay. So, it's just a screenshot of my wiki. Okay.
In text confirming that you weren't willing to flip, that you wouldn't tell us
what you read.
Who
did you text, me or someone else?
So the fact that I texted you actually too.
I didn't get the message. I have 0 reception here. Sorry, my phone's being shoddy. Who did you text?
Your coach.
Which one?
I texted Martin Sigalo. We talked to David Joannides. We talked to other people. Yeah, we had asked them to see what you had read.
Okay, why am I held accountable for the practices of someone who's not even affiliated with like Highland?
Okay, wait, so your wiki isn't like affiliated
no, I'm
to
talking
you?
about,
like,
you're saying like you messaged my coach. Joannides is not my coach, and I also have no control over what
No, I texted Joannides to see what you had run, right?
Okay.
And and David said non-topical app about opening debate space to disability, which you don't have disclosed on your wiki.
Did you ask me to disclose it?
You should disclose on your wiki.
I'm asking, did you ask me to disclose before that?
Oh, because if I asked you, then you'd all of a sudden give me full open source. Like, that was going to change your disclosure practices like that.
Yeah, I've discosed to people before. For
hey,
example,
if you told me before the round, I would have conceded. Like,
Lex asked me for sites to a plan I read. I put them on the wiki after Lex asked me. You can empirically verify that there is a plan on my wiki currently in open source. You could have asked me for the round. Why is that not solving abuse?
I still don't think that's solving abuse because it means I can't prep before the tournament, before the round.
Why can't you just ask me? Alright, so the bracket came out last night, yo.
Hear me out. This if clause is the definition of infinitely aggressive and unverifiable. You will say that if you had asked me, if you had said to me, then I would have disclosed it to you. But that is not the problem. The problem is that you don't disclose on the wiki, which means we don't get the benefits of disclosure since we can't get further in depth and you proceed with free
okay, let's go to the drop debater argument with just Sanchez. What's the impact? Actually, no, it's fine.
The impact is drop the debater.
I know.
You shouldn't lose.
Alright then. It's fine, I don't know. We have different height settings on ours. Two or three left. I'll email you speech short. I'm just gonna reply in the chat.
Okay, how many off?
2, in case.
Okay.
Alright, we got 2 off also in case. Bro, so.
Oh, it's gonna be. Alright, so I'll specify. It's gonna be 2 new offs, but the order will be 1 off, the disclosure theory, 2nd off, then case proper.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, theory. Let me just find this. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff on my desktop. There we go. Alright, sent it out. Let me write down my prep. Alright, are you good?
Is this the counter interp or is this?
It's a new interp. The counter is going to be on the interp proper.
Okay. And this is just in the order, right?
Yeah. Is everyone good? All good? Alright.
A interpretation. Debaters must disclose if and only if the term or direction established disclosure policies state determined by the invitation. Otherwise, disclosure rules must not be established in round B violation. They shall typically punish people not disclosed. Nothing was said about disclosure in the invitation to determine if you begin with verifying or verify check the term under cease taking a predictability with no discussion disclosure of no idea whether one's play out the difference in community and disclosure actually be no norm. The box from line paragraph against the runs of disclosure, but the problems of non-disclosure always determined policies create norms and correct because better every position in the term aroused also becomes skewed to judge about disclosure very polarizing issue to make community more substantive marks due to the impact of participating and judge by it outweighs because bears have no control over also turns out the truth of the tech government at the bottom of the one I see sure you sure we have to sure you're trying to make the argument that's a B not just value technique public arguments A point the normality based that way if you win an argument on the technical level that's probably a true argument B point there are total polarization about disclosure i.e. I don't know disclosure policies of all the judges that are off place there please you have to at least assume some sort of level of non-bias being the judge for the begin with and because it kills debate issues on the other round also kills the real education now impacts on the one I see because we just value truth over tech and disclosure policy that does not justify what we can just value truth over tech and other instances of debate i.e. if you think plants are uniquely bad and I just want to plan that's just the reason why you vote against the obviously kills debate you have to assume some level of non-bias that should also apply to disclosure theory. Debate also your opinions on disclosure should not be relevant. Your opinion only matters now is your opinion whether or not disclosure practice should be established in the round itself. That's why theory shows outlining B point is competitive equity, allowing the around theory debaters, disclosure practice good theory debaters. They don't put up the case and they can be back. Disclosure theory shows the experience bad debaters have the pressure to disclose today. Can't they show the good theory debaters competitive badges do less power on the cases. Less people know them. This is unfair because certain debaters advantage over due to events. It's happening in the rounds control over term rules so because everyone knows disclosure not disclosure. Even good theory debaters also solve at the small school issue. Sure, if term establishes disclosure policy, small schools will be able to go to that term to know what terms they can go to or disclose. Otherwise, there's always going to be disclosure actually disclose or not disclose. Yeah, the question disclose or not disclose also kills back the norms that are coming out of the one. So you're going to actually establish a good norm, and that's the term does that in the first place. The term's the one who establishes the norm, not debaters in the round. C point is coaching by some. Coach for debaters in disclose and Wiki and shape up both say the debaters cannot put full case on the way like they want to challenge. Term is specified disclosure policy like coaches in their places. Zero much won't lose round because coaches political beliefs or make them willing to like coaches because it's coaching first. Either way, debaters won't lose rounds because the coach is completely outside their control. Literally, the one NDCA is criticizing me for something that is not only a coach's action, not my own, but also someone who's not even affiliated with Lake Highland. It's obviously a bad thing, and this unfair stuff with other because they lose around based on Austin or any other compensation other unjustified most records into a certain breakpoint. Things relevant D point is resolution quality. Term direction have been with the activity of longer than 1 to 4 years. The debater has more at least better debate understands in terms of term debate. It's good debate how to improve debate with less experience, significant trying to constrain decision for term directions you make because they produce more unfairness in education than ad hoc results of disclosure term debates. This is especially true for the Emory debate tournament. The Emory debate tournament has a massive pulse team where disclosure is a norm that has still not established the norm for disclosure in the LD department. They probably have at least more understanding how LD functions in relation to policy debate where disclosure is actually a good thing or a bad thing to begin with, and that's a D point crossed by the voters. Voter fairness debate activity straight by rules about the potential objective around voting education is only fundamental action education value wasn't one seeks to exist resolvability and reasonability and by judgment to BS and the marshals use me interpretation judgment to force I lose done drop the bears and they want the church to be superior moving on priorities B point to be arguments excuse the substance of the theory so they can't win on some go their interpretation proper a counter interpretation the debater the one The 1AC may not disclose sites tagged in first 3 last 3 positions, or 1AC may not disclose sites tagged in first 3 last 3 positions if it was not asked before the round whether I should disclose. B, I mean, you never actually asked me to disclose in the last place. You asked my coach whether or not I would flip, and you asked Joanne what I run, but you never asked me before the round whether I would disclose C-point standards, souls, literally all the abuse you asked before the round. You actually established good practice. I say net benefit. You don't have to establish in-round practice. The entirety of my theory interpretation was a disadd to their methodology, and here can verify I would disclose to Mossie's kids likes, asked me whether or not I would disclose, and I put the plan on the wiki to solve literally all your abuse. You just came to me before the round. Also, you're gonna make the last speech, and you're gonna make the argument that it does not allow you to prep. The bracket came out last time. You could have easily just asked me to disclose. Gut check really hard. If you want to value truth over tech, evaluate that highly here. Also, solve that for saying you know outside debate. Because it means debaters are not going to be asked to disclose in a very competent, competitive, or hyper-militaristic status. I.e., ask me to disclose in round is definitely more problematic than asking me before the round whether I get sites. It also allows you to give that reciprocal next. That's probably also a good practice to begin with. Now go to your initial interpretation proper. I'd say overview the entirety of my counter interpretation, mitigate the majority of abuse in the shell because it makes the strength of the violation very weak. Because I didn't know this argument was going to be run before the round itself. Now let's go swiftly on the line, but then go to the regarding argument. That's the A point of making it worse. You could have rectified the abuse from lots of a lot of abuse here. Sorry, you talked to my coaches and told me the coaches, and I also turned specifically the Ripstein argument. Ripstein would say you should not hold me accountable for practice I did not know where a norm existed to begin with. I.e., you're punching me for something I did not intention. I did action in that I did not will to begin with. That's probably harmful under the Ripstein aspect idea free run. Now let's go to your B some way about deep research. Sure, my counter term shows the majority of the abuse I empirically verified. I would disclose. Ask a Charles and C B point. It actually kills it also kills quality of research within the constant debate right now. Let's go to the nails argument. Let's go to the nails argument. Sure. Let's go to the nails argument. Sure. The nails may be a true thing, but my interpretation controls the tone to how we establish disclosure practices. Now let's go to the academic ethics argument. A point of empirical and empirical war disclosure exists in policy debate. There's still evidence that the challenge like hard clip. There's no justification why you saw back the entire about the evidence. People are counter the exact same thing that been in the initial interpretation in the last speech. Now let's go to the framing. Let's go to the framing issue on Sanchez. It says still begs the question of the intent of the action given across by the Ripstein argument here. The contextual for action is not an action to the implication you should implication of drop the video, drop the my theory interpretation. I'll say my theory interpretation, my theory trade to train is really around that the interpretation around for in the first place of our mind. It's a better theory. I'm actually reading this. I'm just accident, I guess. As far as my theory interpretation, always comes first under the interpretation paradigm because example of the other interpretation paradigm, the theories based on which I was good north debate. The north debate is all problem inherently problematic. So bad thing people in my knowledge in terms of our consideration, my shows the ability to actually run the interpretation. I'm not going to read the cap. I'm just going to read the short of the case. Overview the case. Considering the majority of the 1AC was just the interpretation again, without saying these goes to the interpretation problem, the my interpretation problem becomes a higher consideration to the rule not coming out of the 1AC theory interpretation. I control my ability to actually access level because anybody 1AC properly would have just been taken up by this goes to the interpretation activist. Most by the time you'd actually get the 1AC engagement solved, probably by consideration of the 1AC rolled out because if the coach will actually reading back terms, I'm going to read the turns there. Now it's just over and over the turns. First turn, paying for our increased crime meta-analysis, prove over 200 study, prove like Council Master. We're from the most extensive violent crime levels where guns are below 7, the violence and highest crime to U.S. national security sciences release the evaluation, and if also by the evidence to gain control against violent crime, suicide accidents, the same include reaching 2003 senior centers to control technical cultural order exists within with and without guns, the cultural order created crimes, terminal defense to 1AC, that puts voter risk above 2, the theory interpretation, that's case Mauser 2, the extended gunship facilities down murder rate, violent crimes always have a long history involvement in criminal behavior, violent crimes not following guns and ban, the examples of rights of murdering Russians, people who have always murdered by guns and people with weapons. Third, gun restriction, no effect on murder rates and culture, balance and culture, that's Council Mauser 3. Gunless and Roger Russian murder rates the same thing. Government American Russian diets at 3 times higher than the United States. Thomas rates and statistics are scarce. And I want to substitute many other developed nations with high gun murder rates as much lower than the developed nation with gun fewer. And for handgun may lead to increased violence, increasing violence. The UK proves that's Malcolm. In the UK, the government near imposing banning hard ownership gun. Malcolm continues. The ounce of weapons are confiscated in 6 years. The ban crimes will be more double the firearm rate. Increased market is also that's don't let disclosure. Him up to disclosure. These independent reasons why these turns go away. These turns should not have been disclosed under the interpretation begin with. They're not independent in that position. So yeah, the game. I did not read the cap K. I only read the disclosure arguments. No cap K.
Right, and there's nothing that you read that wasn't in here?
I mean, I accented meta theory, but that's it.
Okay, you ready?
Almost. Let me just modify the speech doc. Yeah, I'm good.
Wait, hold up, I think I may have deleted the wrong thing. Oh, you had the cap K in here twice, is that what?
Oh yeah, that was an accident.
Got it, I was like, I thought I just deleted that.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start on the counter interview. You say if you were asked before, you would have disclosed. How do we verify this?
Literally, Tomasi's kids asked me to disclose, and that's why there's a plan on my wiki and open source.
So you only disclosed because someone asked you to. You felt like you needed to be asked first?
I mean, yeah, my school's still polarizing the issue of disclosure. It's probably a good practice to ask me and to set a norm.
Let's go to your tournament rules good shell.
Yeah, sure.
How are we able to deal with this in round?
In round? We don't. We let the tournament
how are we able to deal with this out of round?
I mean, you can ask. That probably is a good thing. Even if tournaments don't enforce it, I'm still willing
You
to
said
disclose.
that disclosures must disclose only if the tournament says that you have to disclose, which means that if I had asked you, you would not have provided the information because the tournament did not require it.
What?
Your intern. Debaters must disclose if and only if the tournament directors establish.
Yeah, debaters must disclose. That's a clause of your interpretation. You're saying debaters must disclose. I'm saying must disclose
your
if they do
interns
this.
contradict. Your
No?
first one says that the debaters must only disclose when the tournament has rules.
No. That's not what
The second one says, I
John,
will
let me
disclose
explain.
if you ask
You seem to be confused. The first
no,
one
I'm
saying.
going off of the text of your
No,
interns.
you need to listen.
Alright. No, it's fine.
I mean, no, you're not. You're just putting
you know
words in my mouth.
what? Alright, so let's go to your standards.
Alright.
They all seem to be reasons as to why it's better for the tournament director to establish norms than us.
That's the
If the
default.
tournament director, you've said yourself, the tournament directors are not doing anything, right? They did not establish that.
Yeah, because there's.
So if I win disclosure is good, isn't that a reason as to why we should take proactive?
No, there's
attempts
still
ourselves?
this as to establishment in the round. The argument that the tournament directors know more about how
Okay,
the
why
debate
is it
works than
bad to
us.
do it in the round?
That's the entirety of the shelf.
Yeah.
I'll just go through the warrants for you.
No, just give me a brief oversimplification.
I mean, the
ridiculous
oversimplification-
oversimplification of why we shouldn't deal with it in round.
I mean, there's no oversimplification. There's 3 to 4 independent arguments to why it's bad to do it in round.
Okay, so
I can
you
go through
literally-
each of those if you want me to.
That's fine.
All right.
Let's go to disclosure. Do you make RBIs?
I mean, no, I don't go for an RBI. It's just mitigatory defense or terminal defense on
Okay,
your
so
initial interpretation.
no RBIs
Yeah.
whatsoever.
I can. Yeah, I agree. There's no RBI for either of us.
Let's see, anything else I want to address? On the free writing argument,
Yeah, sure.
you say that you wouldn't be free writing because of the counter interp.
Yeah.
How is this true?
Because under Ripstein would probably say if I didn't intend the action, I shouldn't be held accountable for the action to begin with. Or like using some sort of Kantian interpretation of like what free writing is in the Ripstein arguments. Like you read Ripstein for God's sakes.
Okay, so your argument's based on the Ripstein evidence.
I mean, also probably the strength of the
do
violation
you or do
mitigates
you
the
not
strength of free writing.
I'm asking, do you or do you not free ride?
I mean, I've disclosed before when people ask me, so I'm probably not free writing if you ask me. It would have solved the abuse. That's the argument. The second argument is that I'm not free writing if I didn't intend it. Like I didn't know I had to disclose.
Why didn't you
establish
ask me if I thought you should disclose?
Because there's no tournament rule. The burden should be on you if you want me to
No,
disclose.
I don't
There's no
understand.
pre-established norm exists. If you want me to do something outside the norm, you should probably ask me. You're trying to
Well,
establish a norm. You should probably.
What's your
do
reason for why it doesn't outweigh? You say it's not your fault. Then on deep research, how does the counter Oh no, actually, I have your. What's your answer to academic ethics?
Academic ethics. It's an empirical claim about empirical ward. Like policy day has mandatory disclosure. There's still evidence ethics challenges. There's no reason why you solve the evidence ethics disputes. The second argument is that my input would have still sold back to this abuse. There's no net benefit to forcing disclosure if you just could have asked me to begin with.
What was your analysis at the top of the AC?
At the top of the AC?
Yeah,
Like
you said
what-
something about the roll about.
Oh, the roll about. Oh, yeah. The analysis was that the theory debate is a product consideration to be engaged in that. Because specifically with disclosure theory, if I lose disclosure theory, it doesn't matter what I read on case. I'm always going to have it drop because of the theory shell. So if I win the theory shell, it should come as a higher layer because it controlled my access to the other layers of the debate.
stop prep. 129 remaining.
129 remaining. Okay. Are you reading anything now?
I don't think so.
Okay. What's the order?
Let's see. What's the best way to stack this? Let's go. Your. I would have disclosed. That's Adam. All right. It'll be. I'll wait for Adam to get ready. But I've got my orders set.
Just gotta plug in my phone.
Let's gather your thoughts a little bit.
Order will be his counter interp. So like I would have disclosed if you'd asked before. Then the initial disclosure interp. Then his theory shell.
Yeah.
On like tournament rules.
Yeah.
And then finally the AC.
Okay, so counter interp, initial interp, new theory shell, case.
If that's what I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making
That
sure.
says. That's how I'm pulling it. So.
All right. Awesome.
Let me grab some water.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And this is gonna start fast on the it'll be beef counter interp and I meet, but it's starting fast. Opponent ready?
Yeah, sure.
Anyone not ready?
Counterintuitive debaters don't have to ask if the opponent doesn't disclose. Like, B, I mean, also on your stated, I mean, I did ask you, I Facebook messaged you. Second, I asked you, you just weren't present for when I asked you when I was in my room last night. I said, Michael, will you disclose? And you didn't respond. That's your fault. Now on to the standard level. First, it's unverifiable. We can't determine whether or not you would, what you would have done if I had asked. Second, we can't determine whether or not I had asked. Third, there's no way to get back for this. The only way to solve this are the screenshots which I provided in my shell, which means that my shell is substantively better because it quantifies what actually happened. And third, even, also, you don't co-op any of the advantage because if you disclose on the wiki, then this theory shell wouldn't even exist. So it means I solve for any DA that you claim now. Also, you say that you have one empirical example, but that would just allow, if I asked you, then that would allow you to have infinite abuse because you could just say, oh, I wouldn't have read 8 a prioris or 6 off if you just asked me about it before the round if I thought it was fair. This also co-ops his offense, where he says that we shouldn't talk about end-round disclosure arguments because he says that it's bad because we aren't able to establish the best norms, but we can't establish the norms if you will not agree to good rules beforehand, and there's no way to verify that, which means that we have to settle it in the round. Finally, my abuse definitely outweighs yours because I wasn't even able to engage in your position in the first place. You at least had a chance. I disclosed literally everything I've ever read on this topic and the past topics. You have disclosed next to nothing. So there's always a comparative advantage. Now on my turn. Extending the interpretation that disclosures, debaters have to disclose on the wiki extent. The conceded violation is 0 neg position disclosed in only 1 half on this topic. It's at least read the Nietzsche and then a non-topical ableism half. That means I weigh on strength of link and the risk of offense is enough to affirm. Now, on to extend the free writing argument that you have a huge reciprocity advantage because most people disclose on the wiki and you get cites, cards, cases for prep, improve quality of ground, but I can't predict the way you're running. Extend the three sub points that I can't predict since A, every recent disclosure is good to advantage for them and not B, and B, view that counterintuitive with a grain of salt because it's self-serving. Do you have your timer? Can I borrow it? See? And it's self-serving.
Sorry, delay, by the way. I don't know what time.
Okay, well.
It's free writing is more than an independent voter. Also extend the Ripstein argument. Thank you. Extend the Ripstein argument that you are free writing, which is necessarily immoral. You said it's not your fault because you didn't know about these rules, but that is bull since you have 17 TOC bids on your team, which means that you definitely know about the disclosure norms of the national circuit. Don't allow him to get out of this. The free writing is definitely the biggest impact. It's unreciprocal, and he has said that fairness comes first. You wins fairness comes first. Reciprocity is the internal link because it controls. It's definitionally what is fair. Next, extend the nails argument that you present deep research. You say counter solves, but just because you disclose what, but that doesn't solve because it means that people who aren't able to reach you, for example, someone who doesn't have Facebook or doesn't have your number, isn't able to get to you, so prevents deep research. Also, turn the interp solves better because if you had disclosed it, that means people would be able to research outside of the round as well. But furthering, so away from the stock arguments, means you don't control the internal link. Now, on the academic ethics argument, you say that it is not able to solve, but that is the best defense in crap because if you disclose the issues, then I would have been able to research them and backtrack to make sure. Finally, extend the drop the debated argument under Sanchez 5. Sanchez 5 says this is a meta-theoretical argument and that norms creation is best for determining the disclosure to be. You say that it begs the question of Ripstein that the counter-terp has a reason for bad norms, but bad norms are that norms creation is definitely preferable because it allows us to get back to substance in future rounds. If you lose here, Sanchez says only if you lose here do you actually change anything in the future. Now onto your tournament interp. Counter-interpret debaters have to disclose. We or actually just cross-apply my interp. It's a counter-interp to yours. Now on your interp, you don't even meet. You said also you don't even meet because you didn't disclose. Second, second check the invite. It actually says that you should disclose. Third, if your interp says that disclosers, debaters must disclose if the tournament's only if the tournament's established, which means that you contradict because you wouldn't have disclosed otherwise. That's what the tournament rules are. Now group the standard debate. I agree that it is a good idea for the tournament directors to establish us, but they will only do that if we show a precedent for it. Otherwise, they will not do it because they will just go with popular opinion. Means you have no advantage now on your job to debate an argument. This is complete bull and cross-apply the reasons disclosure outweighs. Now on the app. Extend the framing lunch 10% that it is a discursive process that we have to talk about militarism. Is necessary to discuss. That means I don't defend implementation. Your terms don't apply. Extend the role of the body to deconstruct militarism. Definitely outweighs on probability, strength of Lincoln, and constitutional role of the judge. Outweighs strength of Lincoln, constitutional role of the judge.
This is Tomasi's timer, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's like right there.
Yeah, I did like I don't know what mine was at, but I had like 9 minutes on my clock. And I
like forgot to set mine, so I was like, oh crap. Alright, I had, wait, somewhere, 2 or 3 left. Alright, did you get to extending offense on case, or was it just roll the ballot?
I extended that by talking about it, we're able to solve for the problem.
Okay.
That's LUT's 10,
Okay.
as well as the,
Okay.
what was the other evidence? The Lemieux. It wasn't like particularly, I guess I named LUT's intro, but for the most part it's just like an overview extension. You didn't really answer solvency since it's not implementation.
Alright. Okay. Or it's gonna be the 1 in C's new theory interpretation. Is Clay gone?
Yeah, he's doing the live.
Alright, I'll just wait for him. Nothing new, by the way. So yeah. There you are. Alright, so order's gonna be the 1 in C's theory interpretation.
Which one?
The new one, the tournament rule one. Tournament rules theory. Then it's gonna be on the initial interpretation with the counter interpretation, all signposts. And then like, actually no, it's gonna be like overview, my theory interpretation, then the rest. I'll signpost after the overview.
Okay.
Like the counter interp and the initial
Then
interpretation.
the rest. I like it.
Yeah. All about it.
Just as long as you're signposting.
I'll be signposting, do not worry. Alright, is everyone good? Everyone good?
Yeah. Okay.
You got it, Tomasi?
Yep, I'm good.
Alright, everyone, alright.
They conceded the framing that disclosure theory is a prior consideration to me actually be able to gauge the 1AC because disclosure theory interpretation controls my ability to run any negative prep against the 1AC means if I win the disclosure theory debate, that's an independent reason to vote. And I also conceded framing my theory interpretation. My theory interpretation is not saying disclosure is a bad practice, it's establishing whether or not they're critiquing it within the round itself is a good thing, which also controls the internal link to their arms. The only not benefit to their counter interpretation is that this disclosure is a good thing. The next question whether or not establishing the norms in the round itself is a good thing. It also means your counter interpretation is not compatible with my interpretation. Your interpretation just says we have to disclose that. That's not compatible with my interpretation. My interpretation says you can only disclose it if the term is established. Sure, my my interpretation, why I can see disclosure might be a good thing. It's only a good thing if the term actually establishes you need to win a unique net benefit to your counter interpretation. So why is establishing it, even though the term directors do not establish it as being a good thing, and that's a condition. Your only response to counter interpretation terms of competition that determine does mandate disclosure. That is obviously not the case. If mandate disclosure, people would everyone disclosure theory would not be an issue with the term to begin with. You have no proclaiming the default the idea that terms do not directly completely look at the invitation. Never says the bears must disclose in the first place. Let's go to the interpretation property. You say I don't mean my interpretation because I do disclose. Obviously, it's not the case. My interpretation says you can only establish disclosure practice if the term established. You try to make the argument that I disclose, and obviously I wouldn't disclose if the term did establish. But that's not the case. My interpretation just phrased debaters must only disclose if this happens. The must clause is the framing of is just a re-extrapolation of the framing presented in the 1AC theory interpretation, i.e. the debaters must disclose clause the interpretation saying debaters must disclose if this happens, i.e. it's not a normative rule for the debaters to disclose. They still choose to disclose if they want to, but they do not have to disclose unless the term established that. Go check their argument really hard. This argument is very clear. My interpretation is saying you cannot establish a disclosure practice in the round unless the term directors say specifically before the round you have to disclose. Now you go to your argument and say you're agreeing it's good that term directors have to establish good readers. That's great. You agree that term directors know more about debaters. If I win a net benefit to my term directors establish you know debaters is good. That's just an NDCA reason you vote no because you conceded all specific arguments. My theory interpretation was correct, and that's your methodology. The one I see your second argument that the only way to actually get term director to change their impact implications for us to drop debaters around. That's obviously not the case. You can see the framing in the last piece that Emory is obviously a big school with a big policy. They obviously think disclosure is a good practice because policy has to disclose mandatory disclosure practice, but they still not established for the Lincoln Douglas program of the Emory tournament. As far as that, so you have to at least assume that the debaters they know more about what they're doing than we do. That's still a unique net benefit. If I win any disadvantage, just debaters establishing in the round takes out that argument entirely. Let's go to the implicit words by interpretation. Start on the predictability argument. Except predictability within round disclosure practice. I have no idea where the rounds will play out. The difference between norm actually established box for lines and people against disclosure. Also take that unique disadvantage to establishing the round. People are just going to look at it as another arbitrary response. You're not actually a good practice. You're not going to see disclosure. Good practice. You're going to see it as a practice that we have to respond to. That's exactly what's happening in the debate community right now. That's the reason why it's not a mandatory practice now to begin with, because people keep running disclosure theory in the round instead of talk. Looking at the terms actually disrupt the issues to begin with. And if you actually care about disclosure practice, your coach should just talk to the term director before the tournament's run to actually do this. Not just establish the practice in the round. That's a unique disadvantage. You can see in the last speech the very clear implicit warrant to the voter. Now we go to the BR point of competitive equity. Along in our disclosure, careers, privilege is good theory based. Also turns the small school arguments, also turns the real education argument coming out of the one. Sure, disclosure may be a good practice, but you establishing the round just kill small schools. And in terms of establishing the practice would be a uniquely better thing. It's never going to happen if you're just running the argument. That's the predictably argument, unique disadvantage your position. Let's go to the C point. That's coaching bias. Coach bias don't need to majority their offense in small schools, especially the nails argument, because it says that some coaches don't mind the debaters to disclose, but literally exclude debaters from the activity to begin with. And you wouldn't. And it's also, and honestly, my interpretation is small schools. Small schools wish to go do tournament that do mandate disclosure, do not mandate disclosure. That would solve the majority of their impacts now. It's in the resolution called term directors of the activity for only 1 4 years. There's a need that benefits for term directors establishing not the debaters. And you can see the reason why term directors established. That's the reason why I shouldn't run the interpretation to begin with, because you can see that the term directors know more about it than us do. In fact, it is not mandatory disclosure here. It's just the reason why they should have established now. Now let's go to the voter section. Your only response to the drop debater argument that this is bullshit, but that's not a substantiated claim or an argument to begin with. It's just you're just getting mad about this drop debater argument. So go to the warrants. Extend the first vote basically activity must be certain rules potential for object run vote on education debates funded by or education by extending drop the argument example ensures be superior to the proof of the a priori. Now let's go to the framing issue environment. You read your own voter, you can see the two strength of link voters line. What you evaluate now is strength of link. Sure, you have a voter, but you don't weigh it against my vote. You say judges have to reject disclosure, you have to reject people who don't disclose to prevent free riding. Sure, cool, but that does not weigh against fairness in education. Mine's a meta theory interpretation constraining yours. Your response to meta theory is that yours is also meta theory, but if that's the case, mine's just meta theory, because it still logically receives your ability to run this position. And if you don't want to buy that, it's still a disadvantage to running your theory shell to begin with, because it controls the internal link to the one it sees theory shell solvency, and controls the internal link to substance, which you did not extend offense for. Do not get up and say that bullshit that you said in the last speech. You do not extend offense on case. The only offense you have at this point is theory debates. Let's go to your initial interpretation. So, go to the counter interpretation. Extend the counter interpretation about the debaters must only disclose must only disclose if you ask me for the round disclosure. I make the argument that's non-verifiable. That is non-verifiable. The 8 point. Even if non-verifiable, still better practice than being with IE. You can still verify that some people have to disclose even before the term actually begins. You can just face the best before the term actually began, or conflict means through all the mean or just come to be determined. All around the term you could just found the com people just asked where it was. It would solve by majority views. The non-verifiability argument also you read non-verifiability against me wanting to disclose. Also takes the argument that you asked me to disclose for me to in case of the first step Facebook messaging. Sorry, I can't check my face on the phone. I pretty sure your reception here. The second argument that you asked me after a round, you could just run to me. There's obviously no way to actually verify this argument. As far as that, you've already been informed that to actually ask for the round. Still, a reason why you are not going to issue. The first argument that is the net benefit of my interpretation is the meta theory interpretation around the money. See, that's a good. It is back to establishing around asking before the round is always been comparatively better practice because there's no way to establish disclosure practice in the round itself. There's at least some sort of marginal way we can establish the practice out of round. I ask me, and you're right there. Is non-verifiable disclosure. Look at the screenshots he's had for begin with. I have one thing on the wiki. That's the one thing a child asked me for to begin with. I at least have at least some mitigatory advantage to me disclosing, and I say no to your message, you'll at least have strength of violation to my interpretation that would at least allow you more validate more, so more of the arguments made in the 1 and C is still a good thing. Now, go to initial interpretation. You still conceded framing that the 1 and C's new interpretation constrains your ability to actually access these arguments to begin with. Access is because it controls the internal consultancy. As far as that's true, at least a mitigatory net benefit to the counter-interpretation in terms of asking, it at least mitigates the strength of the violation of the shell. Because I probably wouldn't have violated it if you would ask me. As far as that's true, it at least gives me a stronger strength link on the initial interpretation than the 1AC's theory interpretation.
Okay. I have a minute 29 remaining. Starting now. Does fairness come first?
I mean, I don't weigh between them. I'm saying my theory shell uniquely comes before the 1AC's offense, because I could not engage
but
in
if
it.
I like somehow beat back your theory, would fairness come first?
Would fairness come first? I mean, I don't weigh between voters. I just say I weigh strength amongst the voters. To fairness and education.
Okay. It'll be briefly at the top of the AC flow. Then,
So like case.
yeah, case, sorry. Yeah, not disclosure. Alright. It'll be briefly at the top of case. Then my disclosure shell. There'll be overviews when I go through this. I'll signpost when I do that, but it'll be, so case, disclosure shell, then his, if you asked me before shell, the counter interp, and then the tournament shell.
Alright.
Okay. Opponent ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Judges, good. Extended the role about it, which is the constitution role of the judge to decoach militarism in educational spaces. He conceded in his last speech, and his best argument was that I didn't extend offense, but he didn't extend defense, which is that I have 100% conceded case offense. That means role about it weighs on constitutional role of the judge and strength of link. Since you conceded it, that is 100% probability. Conceded out of the last speech means I win de facto. You can vote, sign your ballot now. Even then, if you don't want to buy that, you can at least, at the minimum, extend his theory. Fairness comes first on the theory level. Even so, after it goes role about then theory, fairness comes first. That's out of the 1AR. Or out of the 1 and C, which means if I win fairness, the strongest link in fairness, then that means I win the round. Go to disclosure. He says that the interterm constraints of mine, and asking would have mitigated it, but he wouldn't have even given it to me if I had asked it, but we'll get to that in the latest flow. Now, extend the Sanchez 5 evidence, which says that it is a meta-theoretical constraint that we have to focus on norm setting. He has conceded this out of the last speech, out of the AC, conceded in the 1AR, and now the 2AR extended again that it is a norms creation argument, and that the only way in order to stop this from happening is if people lose in round. Tournament directors aren't able to do anything. This is a solvency indictment. It's embedded clashes to why the only way in order to solve is to, if you lose the round. That means you also conceded that you should lose the round, which is the reason as to why I definitely outweigh here. Now, on the standard, I send the interp that you should have disclosed, and the violation conceded that you didn't disclose. Extend the free riding argument that you get a huge reciprocity advantage because you're able to prep everyone, and that you definitely knew about it because you have 17 bids on your team, which means that you know that disclosure is the norm, and you conceded this out was all the norm since every recent disclosure is good and advantage for them, but for them and not for me, and that counter interp is just self-serving, as well as the free riding argument under Racine, which he conceded at the last stage. Finally, extend that reciprocity controls the internal link into fairness because it is definitionally what is fair. That means I control the strongest. This was conceded at the last stage. I control the strongest internal link into fairness, which is definitely the most important thing in the round after the roll of the ballot. That's really, really bad for him. His only response was, it's not my fault coming out of the NC that didn't get extended. I just have to show that this outweighs his interps or his shells or somehow solves for it. So go to his counter interp. Extend the IME that I asked before the round when I was in my room last night and you didn't respond. This is crappy, but he didn't respond to it. So IME second, even if you don't want to vote on that, you can extend the that I Facebook message you and try to reach you. It's no good if I tried to ask you if I'm not able to actually reach you. Also send that is not verified, but we don't actually know what you would have done, which means that's terminal defense on your counter interp. Now onto your tournament shell. Oh no, go back to that. Go to the counter interp. On the bottom. Extend that that your abuse definitely outweighs my abuse because yours caused my interp is able to solve back for yours and both shells. This is conceded at the last stage of the reason. That's why my disclosure shell comes first. Even if you were both on the meta theory plane, we can't argue. They both impact active fairness and education. There's no reason why yours is equally better, especially when you conceded that mine is meta theoretical. You conceded that my abuse outweighs your abuse. So even if you were slightly disadvantaged in responding to mine, it definitely is outweighed by the fact that you didn't disclose this. It would have prevented this debate in the first place. Now onto his interp. Overview to this interp, there are several problems. First, check the invite. He conceded that that it says that you should disclose. At some point that he contradicts himself. That's far worse because you knew it was a bad idea that you had to only disclose in that instance. And now extend the precedence argument that if there was a precedent would have solved, and free writing definitely outweighs strength of link. Look, even if tournaments were a good idea, tournament directors should do this. It's definitely outweighed by the free writing arguments and the embedded clash on the disclosure show.
Good round, John.
Good round.
Do y'all need to see anything, or can I put my computer away?
I need to see the text of the one and see the picture.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Actually, I need to see the text. I don't need to see the text.
The counter interp was exited, but the initial interp is right here.
Yes. Okay.
There you go.
That's what the interp was.
Yeah, it's right there. Tomas got it. Terrence.
Congratulations to both debaters for making it to the Rhoda-Kirshner-Rada tutorial. Professors Yoakum, Stewart, and Tomasi on a 2-1 decision would like to invite the affirmative from Loyola to participate in the next tutorial.
So I guess the percentage of the rounds that I scroll in is slowly increasing over time. So the issue in this debate is that I think on a lot of issues it gets unclear on both the weighing side and like interactions between arguments. I think that so on the theory shell, I check the invite, nor does it say disclosure is recommended or like anything like that. I did multiple iterations of the word disclosure, disclose, and even just said disc. All it said was discretion. So
My bad. Sorry.
like
So I was incorrect on that one.
yeah. So I just want to make sure on that one. Also, I don't think the meta theory interpretation and his counter interpretation actually contradict because it says he must only disclose if and only if it is the tournament rule. Rather, his counter interpretation to original interpretation says you may disclose or will disclose if you ask him to. Rather than it being an absolute like obligation for him to disclose, you would like have the discretion to, which I don't think I don't think those two contradict. I think there's just a lot of conceded offense on the norm setting side of the debate as well as some of the fairness side of the debate. Coming out of meta theory interpretation, also you can see weighing arguments that says meta theory interpretation constrains your ability to read the constrains the original interpretation. That I think is relatively important. So for instance, like there are arguments that are conceded that says like tournament directors saying it as a rule is probably better for norm setting. And the predictability arguments, all that kind of stuff. On the original interpretation, so this might just be a paradigmatic thing, but I think the app is just a non-issue because like I don't think the extensions were really that good. And I know it was conceded, but like at least paradigmatically, like I say my paradigm, I'd much rather prefer extensions of offense, like if you're actually going to go for it. But I know that was kind of like a last-ditch effort, so that's why I don't evaluate the app that much. But I think he's winning many theory anyways. So on his interpretation, so this is where I get like a little bit shady. Maybe it's just because I'm bad at flowing. Maybe it's just because like I maybe not be the best judge in me. I'm sorry, but so the verifiability arguments. So I think that so he says that at least in this instance it can be empirically verifiable if like he's disclosed in the past if those were the result of him asking questions, which I sort of err on the side of. So I think that's at least a decent answer to verifiability, but even more so, he says that you can verify the violation of the shell if it's an actual tournament rule / if you ask him and he says no. Now, the question of like shitty reception and all that kind of stuff, ultimately I don't know what to do with it. It might mean that there's a marginal advantage to your interpretation, but I think that the meta theory shell is a larger benefit, a larger net benefit to like, because he articulates the counter interpretation. The net benefit to the counter interpretation is it solves most of the offense of the original interpretation, and that the meta theory interpretation is the net benefit in terms of norm setting and fairness. In terms of the free writing argument, I think that he solves or rectifies most abuse if it's just a like you can ask me. I'm unsure what to do with like, oh, he has 17 TOC bids. That means he obviously knows the norms of disclosure. Now I don't know. I don't see how this is like. I don't think it's a very warranted argument because there are a lot of like teams that just don't disclose who are like high level TOC bid teams. Like for like.
That's the point. That's bad. I mean, that is the argument, that you should know there are norms. The fact that you don't disclose is very obvious because they're outliers.
Right, but that just points towards that it's not a norm, right? If people don't disclose, right?
All right.
So like,
well, yeah, it's an empirical question. Fine.
Yeah, so that's why I err towards the neg on that debate. I just think he's winning a couple of weighing arguments on the meta theory interpretation, and the line by line gets a little bit messy. I think that if you wanted to have like more clear access to my argument, like more like clear access to ballot, I think that there needs to be two issues that need to be answered a little bit better. First is like spending a little bit more time in the 1AR on the issue of whether or not the tournament making an actual rule that says you must disclose in regards or versus having an actual in-round discussion about the merits and like not so good parts of disclosure. So I think there just needs to be more comparison on that debate, and ultimately I think that if you want to go for the free writing argument, I just think that there needs to be a better explanation of how that works in regards to the norm setting arguments that were made in the 1AC, and how the meta theory implication solves the norm setting arguments. Those comparisons that I think were lacking. In terms of the defense, I think that it was generally. I think the defense was generally decent. It's just like the line by line debate is something that I get a little bit lost in terms of my judging ability. So I think that you should be articulating some of the defense as like more strongly in terms of this is why the original interpretation is net beneficial. At least this mitigatory defense means that you should err on the theory debate a little bit more. Now, I mean that's just ultimately how I decide.
Okay, I'll go next. I totally sympathize with Professor Yoko, I guess. Sorry, I don't really know your last name. Because the negative is ahead technically on a lot of issues, but I think the affirmative technical execution is ahead on the issues that end up mattering in terms of my decision. On the affirmative page, I agree, these are barely extensions. I'm willing to vote on freaking anything, but I could not coherently explain to him what was extended here in the 1AR. In terms of the kind of disclosure theory proper, I evaluate the meta theory debate a little bit differently. I think it's just links to fairness and education at the end of the day, and I don't really think the meta theory framing is substantiated particularly well by the negative. I also think that given that disclosure is functionally an impact turn, or a lot of the standards are impact turns to your tournament's rule stuff, that I just have to evaluate kind of your impacts versus his impacts. I think he ends up outweighing. I also think that he has a kind of framing of Sanchez as a norm setting argument in terms of meta theory, which means that you have meta theory on both sides of the debate. In terms of the kind of internal links here, I think the Ripstein argument is conceded free writing. I think that it's the greatest internal link to fairness, which I think is internal link framing that you conceded, because it means that you can free write off of him, but he can't free write off of you. Reciprocity is the definition of fairness, which means that when you go for strength of internal link framing, I think he has the strongest internal link. In terms of the counter interpretation being able to solve the offense, I think you can see a ticky-tack argument here that he asked you alone in his room last night and you did not reply, which is rather unfortunate for him, and for you, because you were probably miles away at that point. But I think that the murkiness of this debate probably proves that it's not verifiable in terms of like Facebook messages, emails, and screenshots, and kind of like Joachim, I don't know what to do with these things. I think that proves the kind of lack of ability of the counter-interp, which is the implication argument he's making. In terms of your shell, I don't think that like coherent arguments were made here by the affirmative and the 2A arguments. Like he violates and it's extending through ink. I think that the biggest problem here is that you're not weighing your impacts versus his impacts. I think the strongest things that you win, like small schools and coaching bias, etc., are articulated as internal link terms to standards that he, at the end of the debate, does not extend, which means that you have one internal links to a lack of terminal impact at the end of the debate. In terms of the tournament director stuff, I'm a little bit skeptical here because of the fact that, sure, maybe the invitation doesn't say this and tournament directors know more, but it's not cross-applied specifically to the free riding argument, which means I kind of default to what the debaters are telling me. I also think that the strength of warrant is not sufficient here to warrant terminal defense. Like, tournament directors are smart, but they're not omniscient, which means that in terms of, if we're going by strength of internal link framing, there's still a large risk of offense to that internal link and to the terminal impact, which means I end up kind of voting affirmative.
Okay.
It was a close debate.
A few questions.
Yeah, sure.
The implication of the meta theory interpretation was that it was a disadd to 1AC's theory solving. That disclosure will never become a norm if these disadds exist. That was the implication specifically on predictability at the top of the shell. And how do you evaluate that? Because it seems that I know you're evaluating in terms of strength linked to impact, but if there was conceded warrants in my theory shell, let's say you're never going to reach those impacts, you're not going to solve the abuse, I don't get how you can affirm.
Because I don't think it's articulated that way.
It was, I spent like 30 seconds articulating that. Was it just not clear enough?
I mean, you are articulating it as internal link terms to his standards, not as internal link terms to his abstract.
I also said it was a disadd to solvency a few times.
I don't think you did, but B, I also think just in terms of more mitigation on the internal link that you conceded is the most important internal link, which means strength of internal link framing versus your stuff. Like, what is the terminal impact to your arguments? I don't really know, because they're internal link terms to standards that weren't extended. So it's more defense to a shell or to an impact that outweighs your stuff.
All right.
I have one paradigmatic question.
Yeah.
So if someone reads if someone has a standard in the 1AR and somebody turns it and the 2AR does not extend it, you just think that offense just goes away.
Yeah, because he needs to tell me what impact it is in the app that ends up outweighing. Because he's relying on the 2AR extending.
I understand the weighing component, which is like if he doesn't extend his impacts and weigh them, then it's just a question of offense versus offense. But I don't understand how you wouldn't think that they were offense at all. Because if someone doesn't extend it.
I don't know, I guess it's like...
For example, like, I impact turn to DA, someone doesn't extend the link, would you think there was an offense?
I think the issue is that...
Is that it wasn't extended?
I mean, I can't really kick this up, but I think in a world in which it was more like a counterplan where you impact turns or internal link turns the net benefit, if you kick the counterplan, then there's no...
Conditionality is way different, though, than just like a round where you're evaluating offense, defense, and turns.
I think that even if I agree with you, it's a question of then weighing those terminal impacts,
Yeah,
which is where...
I'm with you with that, but I was not with you where you said you didn't think that he had impacts because John didn't extend.
Yeah, I guess a more accurate articulation of my decision would be that there's internal link turn to kind of a vague nebulous impact. I kind of understand what it is from the 1AC interp, but I don't quite know how that interacts with the kind of rip scene free writing reciprocity internal link framing.
Okay, so I voted very similarly to Clay. I guess I'll start by saying that non-disclosure is, in my opinion, a very problematic form of free writing. I genuinely believe this argument, and I think that John is winning it on the flow. John, I wish you went for truth over tech. I would have been totally with you on that. I would have signed my ballot like right away if you had won reasonability, but you didn't go for it in the 1AR, so I did evaluate this technically. Free writing is the controlling impact, reciprocity is the definition of fairness, so that's where I evaluate the debate first. 1NC makes an argument that says Ripstein goes negative on the question of free writing. 2NR does not extend that argument. 2NR just says that the counter-interpretation of you can ask me solves that offense. I don't think it does. You had said at multiple points throughout the debate that, oh, sorry, I don't check my Facebook. Sorry, my cell phone reception is bad. Oh, you can just run into me at some point later in the tournament. I think in this context, it would have been way too difficult to ask you for the counter-interpretation to solve this offense of free riding. And also, regardless of whether he could ask you or not, it's still the fact that as a regular practice, you do not disclose, which means he always discloses more and you always disclose less, which would mean, therefore, that it is possible cards, Loyola blocks, be able to do extra prep and research that Loyola would not have an advantage of. I agree with you that the screenshots don't really play that much of relevance in my decision. The screenshot from Martin's Facebook message was just, Michael does not want to flip, and I'm okay with that. The coin flip,
Wow,
I mean...
that came up in this debate?
Yeah.
Respect minus.
So,
I don't know.
the coin flip, I mean, I do believe that you should flip like 30 minutes before the debate for proper preparation, but if the other team doesn't disclose anyway, that's a moot point. And then the screenshot of just, the wiki being relatively barren, that was already kind of self-evident. So, I think that the counter-interpretation does not sufficiently solve these free-writing arguments. I also think that the counter-interpretation on this argument contradicts the interpretation for tournament directives. First line of the interpretation, debaters must disclose if and only if the tournament mandates this. If you'd gotten rid of only if, I might have voted differently. But you said that debaters must disclose only if the tournament mandates it, which means that if John asked you, you could resolutely be like, the tournament does not require this.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So the framing of the 1 and the 2 and C was that it's a re-articulation of the must clause of their interpretation, saying the must being the norm for disclosure must only be established if and only if the tournament establishes it. I don't see why that says I cannot choose to give up sites to a position.
Well, I think the only if means you can't.
But that only if is only applicable if there's like a norm in place. It's like a norm question. It's not a question of personal choice, absent norms.
Only if would mean if the tournament does not require this, then under no circumstances ought you normatively to give it the
The only if is applying to the must clause, saying the must clause, like it must be a rule if and only if. Like it's only a rule if.
Yeah, but I think that the way you wrote the interpretation imposes an obligation on you to resolutely say no if asked, because the tournament does not mandate this.
Did you evaluate the 2 and R's framing on that at all?
About how this theory argument is meta theory.
Oh no. The framing argument was like on the interpretation, like re-articulating what it means for like what the must clause the insert means. Like I said, it's just a re-articulation of the must clause in the initial interpretation, but saying that must clause has a condition that the term direction has to establish it before the norm.
I disagree with that argument because the interpretation says only if. If the interpretation did not say only if, then I think we'd be at a different juncture in this debate. I think that
What are the relevant conditions that only if applies to?
that if John were to ask, that Michael.
Well, so like the inter, right? It's like when should debaters must disclose.
Well, it's like if and only if
Yes,
the tournament says.
debaters must disclose.
Yes.
Only if. What?
Yeah.
Not debaters can disclose. Only if.
Well, it says if and only if.
Right.
Which means
So, but what are the things that you can do? Like debaters only have to disclose if.
Yeah, John is essentially making a demand on him to disclose. So he could say no because the terms.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that part. I don't understand maybe I'm just misunderstanding what you're saying. That so clearly Michael can choose to disclose. Do you not think Michael can choose to disclose under his inter?
I don't think under the way he worded it with only if that he can. I think he would have to resolutely.
Here are the
say-
conditions under which debaters are obliged to disclose.
Yeah, he's like the only condition under which
The only-
debaters are obliged is if. Well, I think.
Yeah. So if John's argument was just like, well, you never have to disclose, which means like probably you won't. Disclosure is good. I would understand that argument. But like, is it just like there is never Michael never discloses in a world that his inter is true? Was that his argument?
So I think that the way that the 2 and R explained the must clause thing, it needed a lot more work because I think the 2 and R was just like, well, the must clause implies X, Y, Z. I think there was some ambiguity there in terms of how I interpreted the interpretation, how Michael interpreted the interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what Michael just said is what I just said with like less logical words, but like.
But with less logical words.
Okay.